Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of People of Media, where we showcase industry veterans and trailblazers reshaping the media landscape with an emphasis on data revenue. You know me, I believe that the right people are the ultimate accelerator for media. And so to that end, my goal is to introduce you to the best in the industry, both publishers and providers, so that you can partner with the best for all your initiatives. Today, I get the pleasure of spending time with Tim Bradbury, and he's a pioneering force in media, in the media space since the 1980s. I don't mean to date you there, Tim. And as president and general manager of the publisher division of 5x5 Data Co-op, Tim empowers publishers to enhance and leverage their first-party data. So we're going to talk a lot about that because that's just been so much of a topic for all of the different media data collaborative conversations and the People of Media conversations. So Tim, welcome to the show today.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Now you got to tell me about the Community Matters Cafe. That's your spot.
Yeah. No, Community Matters is a cafe that is an offshoot of the Charlotte Rescue Mission here in the greater Charlotte area. And so it's a fabulous mission-based program that the folks that are helping you, get your cup of coffee, get a meal, or folks who are trying to rehabilitate themselves to get back on their feet, back into the community. Yep. And it's just good people, candidly. And, and it's right in the heart of downtown. So we've got plenty of parking. It's easy to get in, get out. It actually has become a little bit of a business meeting area for most of the Charlotte area business folks. So it's great. And in this world of virtual offices now, it's nice to get there, and I always run into people that I know. So it's a good quality place and good food, candidly.
Yeah. So it sounds like Cheers, where everybody knows your name and they're always educated.
It's a lot like that, yeah.
Everybody's got to have a place like that. So if I'm in Charlotte, anybody watching, if you're in Charlotte, you gotta take Tim up on that invitation to hang out.
Happy to have a cup of coffee with you there. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So let's jump into it. So the first thing I want to know is kind of your media origin story. So how did you get where you are today? And just take a few minutes catching us up from the 80s.
I think how I got to where I am today, it's hard luck, great mentors, being in the right place at the right time. We started back in I started back in '84, selling digital equipment to newspapers and magazines to automate the editorial to library process. And there's just two of us in the world doing it, ourselves and Knight Ridder. So in an early stage of my career, right out of college, I got understood technology, got my hands dirty with data, but more importantly, how to apply data to problems. And we were creating databases at the time, and so on and so forth. So really got started there. It was a startup. We sold the business, and then went to work. I wanted to see if I could be impactful at a larger company, and went to Thomson prior to the Thomson Reuters merger on their educational side, and helped them building a digital business, and then spent my time in meetings, and I hated it, candidly. So I'm like, I want to be in front of the customers. I want to be in the marketplace, and was there for 3 years. And then Ray Shaw brought me to American City Business Journals in 2000. Had a very specific objective. He said, I don't believe in this internet. I don't know where it's going to go, but at the same time, we need to do something. And so you have 12 months to get it profitable. And if I'm not making money, I don't care. I'll shut it down. So we had 12 months. So,
pressure.
It was a lot of fun. In 2000, the internet was a lot of fun. So I was with ACBJ for 13 years, and then a midlife crisis, left the publishing world, started my own business, got into SaaS, got into some ID graphs. Great Hill Partners put me into survey.com, and did some work there in SaaS world, and then recently the 5x5 folks about a year ago reached out to me because I knew them and asked me to help them with publishers. So I mean that's short version of my little journey.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot in between in between the sentences there, a lot of life, and also just the relationships that you've gathered across along the way. You talked about hard luck and great mentors.
Yeah,
and I resonate with that so much. It's the people, right? Those are
yeah,
the stories between
right.
between the lines. Um, so I do have a question. What's one thing you learned from Ray Shaw? And can you tell us a little bit more about him and kind of one of
Yeah.
your mentors, I assume?
Yeah, Ray, he for 14 years he was the chief operating officer of Dow Jones. So Ray came. He was a journalist by trade. Was the electronic guy within Dow Jones. I think he started Dow Jones News Retrieval back in the day, so on and so forth. Learned a lot from Ray. Here's a quote, because after I arrived at ACBJ, I set up a meeting between myself, Ray, and the executive vice president of strategy for Bank of America. Brought in there here in town, brought him over to talk about what Bank of America was doing for business professionals, how they're trying to reach them, how we could work together in a much larger relationship, and had a good discussion. And I asked Ray afterwards, I said, "So Ray, what'd you think?" He said, "I was not impressed. Anybody with a strategy in the title means they've never operated a business. We are strategic operators. We are about cash flow. We are about delivering value to our clients. I'm not interested in 3 to 5 year, 7 year plans on what the strategy is. We deliver value today." Right.
Wow.
And so that resonated. Obviously, that was, God, it's probably 2000, 2001. That resonated with me. You can build plans, but what are you doing today to impact the lives of your clients and your stakeholders in terms of driving their success, which means your success? So, it was, he was a very interesting guy to work for. In fact, one of the guys of your community who I connected with, James Briner, could tell you the same thing. So James and I hadn't talked for 10 years. We were exchanging emails earlier this week after we got the invite for the next meeting. So he can confirm some of the same stories.
You caught up with him. That's good.
Yeah,
A great dude.
Yeah.
Just that same breadth of experience, right? Just, I love it. So, and so what you even just described, I hear, you and I have had, some time prior to this call to get to know each other. And that is one thing I hear in your language. You use the language you use, like blocking and tackling and don't boil the ocean and all these kind of really tactical, bringing strategy and planning down to forward motion in the moment, in the present, versus just keeping things abstract, which is part of the reason I invited you to. I don't interview everybody. I invited you to interview you because I believe that you can speak about complex things in a language that invites people in that don't have a data background or don't have a technology background, which is the goal. It's the job right now, right? It's to bring people in and invite and equip instead of keeping them out with all the jargon.
So I'll go back to what you said earlier. It's about impacting the lives, right? And so most people in our in the organization are trying to accomplish and be successful today or tomorrow or this week, right? And how does that fit into the overall plan of what we're trying to accomplish? Well, and so we can develop these grandiose, and I don't mean this to trivialize it, they're important, a roadmap and a plan for what needs to happen. But the impact and the success is, what did we do today and what were the successes we had this week that we can build upon it. And so it's like, blocking and tackling. How do we apply what we're doing today using data or technology to get better for our stakeholders? And I use that word stakeholders a lot because it's in publishing, it's not only our readers, but it's our advertisers and it's our employees, to show how we're getting better and helping them get better. And so I think blocking and tackling is really important to help teach people what can be done. We can set a vision, the boil the ocean, if you will. Gosh, this is what we could do. but let's get there one step at a time. Be where our feet are and get there so we can all advance together. So
Yeah, I'm gonna make a little bit of an abstract connection here because one guy I follow is Tim Ferriss, the author, writer, kind of business consultant, but also like just a big time dreamer and thinker, incredible dude.
Yeah.
One of the things he talks about is a disposition to action. And so he talks about how this is going to sound unrelated, but he has this thing called the information diet, which is he thinks you should not just be constantly consuming information from books, from podcasts, from the news, but that really you need to really be very selective there, because the goal should be not to bring in more into your mind than you can actually output into action. So he wants there to be a balance between input and output, because we tend to be, especially in the age of information, a very input driven people, right? We want to know everything, but you get lost, right? If there's not a constant cadence of converting it to action, you get lost and you don't get the valuable experience, which is the gold, right? The goal, it fail or succeed. The gold is you actually did something, right?
Right.
So whoops.
No, and I did something, and it's measurable, and it means that I'm doing a good job, and so I'm getting that personal reward this month, this week, this month, this quarter, right? And I just think we can tend to overlook that at times.
Yeah.
So I go back to Ray's comment about being a strategic operator, right? That's just how I think of that's how I try to act, right? In terms of building the action and helping people understand what is it we need to accomplish, not only long term, but this week, this quarter, to make a difference for the stakeholders. So
yeah, and that's why I'm excited, because especially in this area of data and audience and first party data, all these buzzwords, right?
Right.
Very few people can give a recipe or blueprint or advice on just the first couple steps to take. That a person can hear that and say, oh, okay, I get it, and that's actually within the realm of possibility for me to actually go out tomorrow and do. That's what I'm trying to do all day, is to convert this, really, because it is complex. Like, the technology is complex. The landscape is complex. What you can do now is 10x or 100x what you could do 10 years ago, and which means information overload. So yeah, that's this gets me pumped. And so let's jump into before we jump into those mechanics, I think there's a pretty good segue now to your superpower, which I think you've talked a little bit about, even just in the context so far. So what do you see as your superpower, and the way you help people within media?
That's an interesting phrase. I think I'm pretty good at helping people understand maybe a complex problem in a simple form, but really, how do I apply data or data solutions to solve the problem, right? And don't get so concerned about the data and the solution. It's like, how are you going to solve this problem? How would we have solved this problem before Gen and AI, right? That's fine. I mean, they're not new problems.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've had in the digital world, we've had issues, and I say we as a publishing community, we've had issues driving and building quality audiences from the very get-go. Because we did this at Biz Journals. We got enamored with the one and done folks. We got 40 million people coming in. That's great, and you can monetize that, but it can tend to also distract you from the real core objective, and that's challenging, right? So I think from a superpower perspective,
yeah,
or maybe it's just a strength, it's just understanding, breaking down problems or issues, and applying data to solve them. Because data is not the cure all. It's an element to help you enable some sort of solution to solve. So it's I mean, I've had some success doing that.
Yeah, I like what you said about data is not the cure all.
Right. It's not.
Yeah, it's a piece, or it's a tool. It's a tool to generate potential action.
That's right. It's a tool. It's an enabler. So, and we've got to keep that in mind when we think about using data in our business, right? And not even using data, the collection of data and the strategy about what data do we focus on, what data do we not focus on, but we still need. How do we bring that in to create whatever picture I'm trying to get for my stakeholders? So
yeah, and I'd say that when you and I talked, that was one of the things that rose to the surface for me, because I'm always talking about data revenue, right? Which sounds like, okay, if I just get this thing right with my data, it'll just go out and start making me money, right? And I think we've got to broaden the conversation a little bit. Data is, it's not that there's no chance for that to happen, right? It's not that there's no chance for you to create models in which data can actually generate ongoing revenue. That's not like impossible. But it does seem like the job in the short term is to harness and leverage data to propel us towards the right actions, right? Like, and even with audience, right? Like, because audience is kind of your wheelhouse. That's where you're playing in the ocean or the pool or the lake, whatever, of audience, of supplementing first party data. Am I saying that right? Sometimes I get my language.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's the ocean, pool, pond that we're playing. Yes.
Yeah. Right. And so, but it's not just, hey, buy this, buy access to all this data we've got and you're set for life. Right. It's not that. It's right. You have to have a strategy, and this is going to be a part of that strategy to help solve the old problem. I love that. Like, the problem hasn't changed. It's the same problem. Which is, how do I engage my audience?
Right. It's being a sports guy. It's the field of dreams, right? It's actually the anti-field dreams. You can build it, but they're not coming. You got to go get them, right? That's part of the challenge that we have in publishers who are relying on programmatic and the growth of programmatic revenue. I mean, it's struggling. They're struggling right now. The big walled gardens are taking the vast majority of that. They know more about our customers than we do. And the challenge with that is that the publisher that we're seeing is I can even working with us, we can resolve the unknown traffic and help build more premium content, and you could premium audiences and availability. But even if you put that out on the exchanges, nobody knows you're there, right? So you still, publishers, you still have to let the stakeholder know what's there and why it's more valuable than somebody else. So there's that balance that comes in. So again,
and we're going to get it really, I think, really tactical, because that, like I said, our last conversation, you helped me to get it down to a really tactical space, of how to one way leverage data in order to begin to create a path towards revenue, which I think is the goal. So what is 5x5 in layman's terms? And because I think you're starting to kind of talk a little bit about what you do every day to help.
Yeah, through 5x5 in layman's terms, and 5x5 is a code or a label for signal detection, right? And I didn't name it. I wasn't that smart. Okay. And so what 5x5 is think of it as a big data company that has really been formed and continues to stay informed based upon, right now it's probably 340 billion signals that we receive a day from all of the member organizations who are contributing to us. We've taken all of these signals, for lack of a better layman's term, and we've been able to identify people. So there's an identity graph that's been created for both on consumers and business professionals, and an ID that connects those two, right? So myself or you, Johnny, your business consumer, there's a device, because as part of the signal detection, we've got I think it's about 1.8 billion, our cookies on approximately 1.8 billion devices, just US, right? And so that enables a device graph around a device graph, if you will. So you've got people, you've got devices, and then you've got behaviors, and it's all deterministic data, which is another way to say that is it's actually Tim Bradbury. It's not an AI or algorithm saying we think this is Tim. So
Yeah.
it's all observed or deterministic data. So
Okay.
you put those three pillars together, and from there, publishers, brands, agencies, they're able to then come in and say, hey, here's from an email address, for lack of a better term, I can now put a 360-degree picture together of Johnny,
Yeah.
and his devices and his behaviors,
Yep.
and really use that as insight to complement. If I'm a publisher, what's my superpower? What do I know best about Johnny? Right. Well, I don't need to know everything about Johnny because I can get that from other partners like a 5x5 to then build this robust picture of Johnny and all those others that are like Johnny. So from an enrichment standpoint, we're able to do that because our cookies on so many devices, we can help publishers resolve any unknown traffic to known. Again,
Yes.
it's all about audience, right?
Yes.
So it's who are these people that are coming, not to an IP address, but to the actual person.
Yep.
And so, it's about growing your existing audience through insight. It's about using, and once you know more about them, it's about modeling and finding more lookalikes.
Yep.
That look just like Johnny.
Yep.
How do I then go out and activate more Johnnies, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then bringing all that together, it's the monetization, whether that's creating more by the enrichment, you're able to create more premium inventory because it's not, it's not just an anonymous person. The resolution helps do that. The resolution also says, well, gosh, these are the 14 people who abandoned my web event page today. I can now go back and nurture them and not, don't be obnoxious and then say, hey, you abandoned my form fill. Why did you do? But it's, again, it's all about the audience and trying to do the best job contextually relevant to monetize that audience based upon what they were doing. So we do that. That's what we do, Canada, and we're only U.S. It's only U.S. data at this point.
Only U.S. Yep. All right. So something came clear to me as you were talking, because what we're, just to simplify it down as far as we can. I'm a publisher. I have an audience. I have limited insight into that audience. That's one of my big challenges, right? Is I have limited insight. Some, if I've really been relying upon print, it's very limited insight into my audience. I can work with someone like 5x5 to help. I think you call it ID resolution. Is that the right terminology for it, or is
that's yeah. Yeah.
So I can work with someone like you to bring context to my existing data, right? So in depth. So now I know 10x or 100x more about each of those people, or some large chunk of those people overnight, right? I now know more about them than I could ever have found out, because of partnering with you. Now there are now I see two ways that this gets used, right? One way, but it's got to be part of a strategy, and we're going to talk about that later. You talked about this being a leadership issue more than a tech issue, right? Because it has to do with, is your company all in to believing that knowing your audience better leads to serving your audience better? Do you actually think that, and do you actually have a plan in place to prove that out or walk that out? So we'll get to that later, but I think there's two ways. One is how I serve my own brand, right? So now I know all this stuff about all these people. Now I can create some lookalike audiences and things like that to try to get more people subscribing, more people attending events, right? Like I need to first drink my own Kool-Aid, right? Which is, I need to understand how I can leverage my audience data to sell my products better.
Right.
Because if I don't do that, then what right do I have to go out and say I can do it for an advertiser if I can't do it for myself, right? Like that came clear to me just now as you were talking. Like that's one, and that's important. That's not where all your money's going to come from, right? Because yeah, let's say you incrementally, I mean, it's not nothing if you incrementally increase subscriptions and you incrementally increase event participation and you incrementally increase newsletter subscription and whatever all the different product mixes are. That's not nothing. But then the probably greater opportunity, I think you would say, is being able to use this suite of this information, this intelligence that I've gathered, this insight, to then create much more benefit for an advertiser. And now I can attract even larger advertisers because larger advertisers are looking for larger campaigns that they're paying larger dollars for.
Mm-hmm.
And the backbone of those campaigns is unique intelligence about the audience. Am I saying all this correctly? Because you're
you are. I think in the advertisers are not, again, I think my opinion, by doing that, they're just not looking for more advertising. They're looking to partner with a publisher who has a superpower that they want access to.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's important too, to keep that in mind. I had a discussion this morning with the publisher, and I used as a use case example. I said, one of the publishers that we work with is now starting to hear from their strategic advertisers, defined as their advertising in my digital, my print, and also in my event sponsorships.
Yeah.
They're wanting to say, look, we're engaged with you and partnering with you because we believe you have the best audience for this specific topic or attribute. We'd like to enrich our own customer database with your customer database now. And the publisher looked at me and said, this was publisher several weeks ago, he goes, I don't have any data I have an email address and I know what they're reading on my site, but I don't have anything more than that. Right. And so he can enrich his database with us.
Yeah.
And creates a much more holistic view of, oh my gosh, these guys are really, really strong. So now there's a data services potential relationship that he might be having with his strategic advertisers. So I think it creates a sense of, from an advertiser and strategic part, it creates a sense of confidence that I'm partnering with a publisher or media organization who really knows their audience.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I want to get deeper with them, is because they know anything and everything about, their audience, how that audience segments, so on and so forth. So I think that's increasingly important, because we as a publishing community have to continue to do more to engage our existing audience, because it's good for us, it's good for business, it's good for feeding the insight that we know about our audience. And that's what people are going to attract people to us.
Yes. All right. So I think you're actually coming to that place of blessed simplicity, which I long for in this conversation. And I think the superpower framework is probably good for this. Like, what would you say is that, because we've referenced this slightly or off center, but what is the superpower of the local or the niche publisher? What would you say is the superpower?
I think it's their community, their access to their community, right? So that's again, I'm not in the role right now of leading a local or niche publisher, but it's the access to that community. So how am I driving and engaging more of that community and deeper into it?
Yes,
that's where my focus is.
Yes.
And data may be an enabler for that, and it may not. It just depends upon your, what you're trying to accomplish. So
I agree with you that is the superpower. The superpower, and we can put it a couple different ways, right? Just to beat it to death, because I think we need to beat it to death, because it's a yes or no question. Like, as a local or niche publisher, do you believe this or do you not believe this, right? Do you believe that your value, when the smoke clears, when it's all said and done, it's not how many articles you have, it's not how many websites you have, it's not how many subscribers you have, it's actually something deeper than all those things. It is your access to an engaged audience that sees you as an authority, right? And I say engaged audience, right? So, because it's not just, am I pushing stuff out into the void? It's, do people people vote with their feet, right? Like, do people see what I'm doing is valuable enough to engage with it? Whether that's through clicks, whether that's through shares, whether that's through comments, that could be a variety of ways, right? But the metric now of the value and the depth of your relationship with your community has to do with engagement, right? So, and engagement is how you prove that you have the community to an advertiser, right? Like that's, and so if that's the product, right? If that's the core product that you have, all the cannons need to be aimed, as many cannons as can be need to be aimed at how do we get even deeper with our audience? How do we broaden that audience and make sure that we're totally inclusive of the whole audience that's within this niche? You know, how do we increase, how do we make it so every audience member, as many of them are possible, are interacting with us, engaging with us on a regular basis? That's the job, right? Everything else is downstream from that job. I think you and I are saying the same thing, just in different ways in terms of what the superpower is.
You're probably being more articulate than I am, Johnny.
Yeah.
I'm slurring my words, so yeah.
Not at all, man. Not at all. Like I love this because we so rarely get down to the core and the root of a thing.
Right.
Like this.
Right. This was a discussion I had with a local media publisher probably 4 months ago. We were talking about this, and they were launching a new corporate subscription program. Right. And I said, okay, do you know every organization that your current customers or audience or they're employed? No, I don't. We need to find that out. You can do that through enrichment, right? The consumer email to the business email. And then from there, using other insight and their own use of your site, you know, how frequent, the frequency and the level of engagement, however you're measuring that, come to your audience. Okay, then here's your core engaged community. Well, then do a lookalike. How many of people that are like that are within that organization potentially, or might be the up and comers? And so how do you turn that engaged audience community member into an advocate for you in your corporate circulation? So you can go sell, 150 subscriptions into that organization. So again, that's a use of data to enable you to learn more about how do I go in and use them as advocates, right? And so we're going through that enrichment exercise with them right now, and then the modeling of the lookalikes at the organizational level, right? So I don't have any results to spew out, but that's another approach.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's what we're doing now is we're distilling it down to the different, we figured out what the ocean is and now, or, what the lake is, and now the different streams that proceed from that lake, right? If the lake is your your audience insight is your product, right? Like your engaged community is your product, your access to that community is your product. Then what are the different streams that meander from that lake, right? To provide benefit to the land, provide benefit to the publisher. One of them is what you just described. Right, like I think that was very concrete, which is, and you said this before, even in your notes, you talked about turning. I think that is that how you put it, turning a subscriber into an advocate, or turning an engaged user into an advocate who's an evangelist for your brand.
Right, and you've got to get to that point in terms of, are they reading? How frequently are they coming? Are they attending your events?
Right.
Some of us have all of that within a system. I can pull that up. Some of us don't. That's part of the blocking and tackling. Who are my existing customers, and who are my best customers, and how do I segment them out, and what do they look like, right? And that's just, again, it's just elbow grease.
Yeah, but the goal, I mean, this is even striking me. I've never thought about this before. You're looking for your, I don't know, I wrote golden user, which maybe that sounds too much like golden record, but your user that just consumes, like they eat everything you serve, right? Everything you serve, they're just rabid advocates of your brand, and so you're saying I can help you identify those, right? I can help you identify those rabid advocates to your brand. And now it's, again, a part of a strategy to empower and equip and activate those people to attract more people
Yeah.
like them to your
Yeah.
brand. Is that what you were getting at?
Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm trying to get to. That's what I think I'm saying. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is lovely. So I think I'm going to skip a little. I have a bunch of questions here to ask, but I think I'm going to skip a little bit because the thread that we're on, I think is leading us here, which is there's a transformation that is happening, whether we like it or not. In the world of advertising, which is the world in which our small to mid-size and even large, all of our media organizations are playing in this world of advertising, and that's gonna continue to be the revenue stream, the revenue model for them, a primary revenue model for them for as long as they exist, I would imagine. I don't think there's a way around that.
Right.
Well, that landscape has changed and is continuing to change to where depth of insight into the individual is more and more forefront. These people have to adapt. We have to adapt to that. That's a hard pivot. It's a hard change to make for an organization that hasn't thought this way since inception. And you ran into this, right? Like you worked for a genius, but at the time that genius was telling you, I don't believe in the internet. Right? Like it's always been slow going on the change transformation side. But you said something in your notes that just struck me. You said it's a leadership issue more than anything, right? Like the ability to take what you do and the value you add and the value that others add and actually even convert it into anything approximating progress or revenue is going to require a change at the heart of the organization. Can you talk a little bit about what you meant by that?
Yeah. So I am I'm a big advocate of leadership by example, right? Because there's so much noise out there in the industry, and I think specifically it's the leader of the organization or the functional area needs to help show their team or their organization what it is that we mean, right? When we talk about transformation or becoming a data-driven organization or a digital transformation, what does that mean? And I want to see you do it, right? As the leader, and that can put some leaders, in an uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
But I go back to, we don't have to boil the ocean to do that, right? From a leadership perspective, we can cast a vision of what we think that means, but then let's take a step back and, okay, what are some of the blocking and tackling that we do? And from a leadership, be involved so you start to understand and the team knows, well, gosh, Tim is up to his elbows in this as well too. So
Yeah.
one, it's important, and I'm learning through the experience of it, right? And I think from a publisher perspective, in not in all cases, but in some cases, we can do that with our stakeholders, specifically some of our advertisers, because advertisers don't know what to do either. Right. So does it create an opportunity to cast a vision with a strategic stakeholder and say, we're going to do this, maybe have the stakeholder underwrite parts of it.
Yep.
And we fail fast, and we're not afraid to fail fast.
Yeah.
Because we're going to fail.
Yeah.
So I think in almost 63 years old, an observation that I've had, especially in the SaaS and being outside of the technology and publishing world, being much more in the technology world in the SaaS, and actually with even at 5x5, you've got a much younger generation than where I'm from, and they're all used to failing fast.
Yeah.
They just want to see that the leaders are used to that as well too.
Yeah.
And so I think it's as much a leadership issue to help the organization and show them what needs to be done and be involved in that, not from the chair, but with your elbows.
Yeah.
And that a lot of my friends who've been, since the early 80s, that makes them uncomfortable. But, sometimes it's okay to be comfortable and be uncomfortable at the same time. And so,
Yeah.
but I think it's a leadership issue in being willing to risk and to show what you need, what you mean, what you're trying to accomplish. And then, oh my gosh, the younger generation actually then moves you forward.
I love it. Yeah.
They really do. They take ownership, and they want to participate and help you get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just my 2 cents worth.
I think you put your finger on it, Tim. I really do, because I think if we think that there's like just some technology solution that's going to save us, or some strategy that's going to come along, or you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a level deeper. Like, the thing that needs to be addressed is a level deeper than strategy can really address. It's do I understand my core product and how my core product really has changed? In some ways it hasn't, right? Because audience was always the product. But now it's something that we can double down on in some new ways, right? Now we can know a lot more about our audience than we could before. But we're not going to take advantage of those things if we don't go and reconnect back with that vision, that understanding our audience was always the thing, right?
Yeah.
It was always the number one thing. So this could be a time of, as challenging as it is, I think this could also be a time of great excitement for people. I think of a couple of people I know. One of them I mentioned, Liesl Liang. Liesl Liang is the publisher of SRQ magazine in Sarasota. She knows her product. She understands, and it's infectious. Like, you deal with anybody from her organization, they get it. They're on the same page. Like, we serve this community. We are this community. That's who we are. We live and die by our ability to understand our community and serve our community, and technology, we will use technology as it serves us to both understand our audience, but also to build trust. They will not use technology in any way that will compromise trust, right? Like, that's what Liesl's all about. That. Another one would be Logan Aguirre over at 417 magazine. Another person who, she was the one who told me that one of her great revelations was that she is the community. 417 magazine is the community. That is how advertisers see her. That's an advertiser came and told her, she said, "Why do you advertise with us?" He said, "Because you are the community. That's why I advertise with you."
Yeah.
That's a lady who understands her product, right?
Yeah.
The core product. And so then a lot of these changes will become intuitive if they have that umbrella of vision over them. I think that's my 2 cents, right? Which is part of where you come in. I think you don't just come in with a technology. I think what's special about you, Tim, is you come in with a vision, or helping people reconnect back with the core vision of what their superpower always was. I'm just going to say I noticed that about you. I think that's what.
Yeah, I think the operative word there is reconnect, right? Or help enable. So.
Yeah. So if the person that's, because I think a lot of my audience is a small to mid-sized publisher. And so for the small to mid-sized publisher that's watching this, and I think there are some good moments of kind of aha throughout this conversation that we've already had. But there's also still going to be that, okay, but what do I do?
Right.
Like,
right.
What do I like? I get it, but what do I do? Can you try to help build that bridge for that person watching between?
Always happy to have a conversation with them. We are also working with other partners to enable them who are much more suited to help the small to mid-sized publisher than what we're doing, right? And so, we have partnered with Anne Marie at Leverage Labs.
Yeah.
Right? And great again, it's about the people. Great organization. And they bring something. Us and them bring. It's. I don't want to say it's 1+1 = 3, but there's that. We can work with. We can also work directly with small to mid-sized publishers. It can be a little bit more challenging depending on the data chops that they might have internally. But one of the other values that we have as a membership-driven organization, we have hundreds of we're not yet to 1,000, but we're more than 500 members, right? And all of our members bring something different to the table, unique to the table. So whether that's data attributes that's not available that we can facilitate a partnership, maybe it's a piece of technology or it's ability to put an interface on something. We have a variety of partners that we work with that we can facilitate a discussion with to potentially help as well. And so we, using your word, we are also cultivating this community of our members, right? We've been on a very steep trajectory over the last 12 months, right? We've tripled the size of the business, and it wasn't small to begin with. And so we're going through some of those success problems. Okay. So yeah.
And then who is your ideal client? Because so it sounds like you have ways to help out the small to mid-sized publisher. More direct. But who's your the person watching to know, hey, I really need to call Tim right now to solve this problem for me that I'm having. Describe to me the problem they're having and feelings they're having and all that, so that they can.
Yeah, I mean, we have a vast array of different types of customers, but if a publisher or media organization can, they've got some folks on the team who are true data analysts who can really take a look and work with the data. That's a key signal for us. If they have a large portion or have a significant portion of their revenue coming from advertising, I think the market research says that there's somewhere between 2 and 18% is the range that most publishers know of who's coming to their website. We actually have a resolution rate of between 40 to 48%. So just applying the math, we're able to open up a much larger universe of who you're in, converting, resolving unknown to known. And our business, and also publishers who are very product focused. Right. And what I mean by that is because our business model, it's a forward license. So we license you the data, and then if you want to integrate the data into your product, some of the data can help enhance your product. Great, go do it. We're not taking a rev share. You can keep the revenue that you do. So we look for publishers who are have some data chops, advertising, product oriented, those that are in the business news community, and have an issue with trying to understand who their customers are from an enrichment perspective. Because if you think about it, we've got 364 million consumers in the database matched to 128 million business professionals. On average, there's about, I think it's 5 to 6 consumer emails that each individual person utilizes.
Wow.
And the signals that we get in are constantly verifying and validating that Bradbury House at Gmail, Bradbury House at Yahoo, Big Hat No Cattle at Yahoo, all of these different consumer emails that I use for whatever, all point back to me, right? So there's some of those things. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. So publishers that, let me even point out the product focus part, because you said 3 things. You said they've got to have, if they have data analysts in-house, right? The ability to synthesize and act on data insights,
right,
baked into the organization is is important if they're going to invest in a database to enrich their insight.
Correct.
You said number two, a lot of revenue from advertising. So that's a lot of, I mean, that's a lot of publishers, but and then the last one, product focused, meaning I would assume when I went back and talked about the two cases for using your data, one is internal, drinking my own Kool-Aid, the other is helping an advertiser. If I've got a good solid revenue model and a good product mix in house, where insight can help me to get more conversions and more sales, I'm going to be more likely, because I can get immediate gratification off of licensing your data set potentially.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we've got some publishers who are deep into lead generation business for the clients, right? That's great. We can complement that, right? They're selling a very curated list of leads because these people have interacted with the content, have came in and downloaded an ebook. Our data can also then great for a separate fee. This is an anonymous example. We can mirror, say, here are lookalikes. They didn't interact with the data, but they're probably still within your core ICP. And we can sell those to you, right? So it's just an incremental revenue stream to an existing product offering that somebody might be doing. That's just an example, right?
Right. But it's a slam dunk, right? It's a slam dunk for somebody to do business with you if you're going to help them in that way, which makes total sense. There's one last connection I want to make before we go.
Okay.
And it is the connection that you made for me when we talked, and then we skated just past this in our conversation. And it goes with lead by example, that whole principle, right? That the people in leadership are going to have to get their heads around how to solve their advertisers' problem through the wealth of what's available now. And then it also has to do with a specific use case. You said it would be good for leaders in the organization to kind of pilot what's possible with data, with audience insight, with some of with larger advertisers than typically a smaller organization or any media organization would typically tackle, right? And so if I, as the leader of my organization, instead of passing this on to my sales team and saying, hey, we've got all this data now, we've got all this insight now, go out and figure out how to sell it. That's not going to work. But what could work is something else. And I'll let you describe it, because I think you'll describe it better, because it's what you're equipping leaders to do. So
yeah, I mean, the specific example is equipped the CEO of a media company, a sports enthusiast company, to go sit down with pick out 2 to 3 of their strategic advertisers that is needing to build a deeper relationship with, and also build a defensible position with, because there's entrants coming into the marketplace, and sit down and talk to them about data, community, insight, how we work much more closely together with our customers and your customers in terms of messaging and so forth. And there's a formula there in terms of putting together kind of a vision. Where can we start? But it's literally, I think, getting in this case the CEO to go sit down, because that's when head of sales. So now you go do it, because you're the one representing the community.
Yeah.
I love salespeople, but they're the one trying to sell me something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that leader can go have that discussion, and then bring the others around, define what that objective might be, and then bring the rest of his internal stakeholders together, say, okay, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Right. And then, we can help in a little bit. 5 by 5. So okay.
Yeah. I love that, man. And what I love about it is, and what makes it worth it. What makes it worth it is, now I'm not selling a $5,000 or a $2,000 ad, right? I'm selling potentially tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars of engagement, right? Like I'm selling a large, massive engagement to the large kind of company that can afford and is used to paying for these kinds of engagements. And then I can go out and hunt that and bring it into my organization, because I have relationships with the president of Bank of America or whatever, right? And I have a non-sales relationship, which means you know, I can say, let's meet, and I want to, you know, my organization's changing a little bit. I want to understand what we could do to help someone like you.
Right.
Let's play golf together and talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. The CEO can do that.
Yeah. That's just, I've been part of that, and I've seen that formula work.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can help people enact that strategy.
Right.
And feel confident. Because that's the thing. If I'm going to go and sit with the president of Bank of America or the president of Wells Fargo or whatever, I'm going to want to feel like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which you could help me with that.
I hope. Yeah.
You could help me with that. Come on, man. You know?
So, but no. Well, I appreciate the time, Johnny. Look forward to being part of this community on an ongoing basis. Okay, and talking to other folks.
Appreciate your generosity and your kindness. Thank you for hanging out.
No worries. You have a great day. Take care.